I realized that if I just sit at home in my chamber, like I'm not going to go after my dreams. A lot of people believe that their fate is predetermined or something like that, but I always fascinated how you can shape your life. Think of the craziest version of your life. What could it be? And then just work towards it. And you might be surprised what comes along. Maybe not the 100% version of that, but let's see. To achieve that, like it's super helpful to be with other people and to let other people know what direction you want to head into. Sometimes it can get really intimidating. Sometimes it's not going to lead to anything, but sometimes it's going to reach levels that you haven't even imagined before.
Hello and welcome to the Best Branding Podcast for Women with me, Kirande, digital marketeer and psychologist. For years, I've helped a variety of organizations to get their message across through the internet, via their website and social media. But now I'm focusing on helping female experts, consultants and coaches to build a strong name in the world of business. In the next few episodes, I will be interviewing experienced public speakers to encourage you to step up your game, get on stage and use public speaking to further boost your personal brand on LinkedIn and YouTube.
In this episode, I have the privilege of interviewing Luise Ammerschuber, who has spoken at multiple TEDx stages and even at the UN. One of the many amazing qualities of Luise is that she is actively making the world a better place. Not just at the UN, but also by being on the ground in the communities volunteering, offering her consultancy services to large international corporations and states on how to reach their sustainability goal, educating and empowering professionals via her very active LinkedIn account, that's how I found her, and inspiring the masses via her own NGO, Yes, Impact Circle, and not forget via her podcast, Yes, Impact. Born as an introvert bookworm, how did Luise develop into an outspoken thought leader? That's the main question of this interview. I present you Luise Ammerschuber.
When you were 12, most people read Harry Potter books, but you actually
I also read that one. You also read that. I'm sure you did that. You read, among others, the book of Mohammed Yunus about microfinancing. And most people are actually also touched by books. But somehow a week or 5 weeks later, they get on with their lives and they forget about the man. It stuck with you. And then you launched your career focusing on trying to make a world a better place. Now, my question to you is, I often meet women and I advise them on how to position themselves better. And I always say, niche down, focus on the one thing that you really want to change and can change. How did you go from making the world a better place? What are you focusing on and how did you get there?
Oh, that's a good question because I knew very early, as you said, at 12, I read the book Desert Flower, and then at 18, Mohammed Yunus's book, and they deeply inspired me. My journey in international development and sustainability has been very wide. So I just wanted to find solutions for everything as a teenager. So I literally tripped around the world. I volunteered in every place and did internships wherever I could. And at the time, I was very fascinated by intervening in wars and also criminal justice. So I was fascinated with the wars that have been going on, with the genocides in the world. But I realized we were working on these topics a lot, and they were just the consequences of struggles in the country, of political unrest. And I got more interested in how can we actually prevent these things from even happening in the first place. So I looked more into the socioeconomic dynamics in countries, and I was curious about how can a country actually develop from scratch, or also regarding entrepreneurship within the country, but also employment. So this is really something that I wanted to focus on. So I've really focused on prevention. And in my case, that meant finding sustainable solutions of how people can develop in their country. Everybody knows when we talk about not giving charity, but teaching people how to. But then also I found it interesting, once people know how can they teach the next generation? So having these multiplicator effects in the country. And Mohammed Yunus's book, of course, gave me a huge, interesting approach to that with the microcredits and combined with a very well-functioning yet simple system. So combining really having groups around you as an entrepreneur, not just as getting a credit as a solo entrepreneur, but really working as a group. And then also not just taking the credit, but also getting the financial and the business education. And this is really what makes it key. I saw that this, if applied correctly and also with the correct interest rates, because the concept of microcredits has been misused widely in the world, can really lead to change. And what we saw that is once people get more income for their family, first they will take care of their family, but then also of their village and the wider community. So this is a really beautiful effect. So for me, that was definitely something I wanted to focus on.
When I was doing research, I was speaking with many different women. And I noticed that a lot of women were very shy about stepping into the limelight. And they said they don't actually wish to be more visible, even though they know to reach their goals, they need to be more visible and ideally stand on stage.
Yeah.
How was it for you?
I think for me, I was born more of an introvert for sure. So I remember as a child, like it was really difficult for me just to speak to strangers or something like that. But by the time I got to be a teenager, I realized like how basically it's more fun being more extroverted or like engaging with other people as well. Don't get me wrong, I'm obsessed with my books. I'll spend plenty of time with them and I'll still always be a semi introvert, semi extrovert. But for me, once I got to speak to people and be more open, the opportunities that opened up. And I realized that if I just sit at home in my jamber, like I'm not going to go after my dreams. A lot of people believe that their fate is predetermined or something like that, but I was fascinated how you can shape your life. And I tell my friends as well, think of the craziest version of your life. What could it be? And then just work towards it. And you might be surprised what comes along. Maybe not the 100% version of that, but let's see. But to achieve that, like it's super helpful to be with other people and to let other people know, like also what direction you want to head into. Sometimes you're very shy about that. Like it can get really intimidating, but just speak it out. Sometimes not going to lead to anything, but sometimes it's going to reach like levels that you haven't even imagined before, basically. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was an exchange student myself when I was 16 in South Africa. And I think that then you learn how to be out there. Yes. Did that also play a role with you?
Oh, huge. Since I was 13, I wanted to move to New Zealand. That was my dream. And I fought for it for 3 years with my parents until they allowed it. And then, of course, like suddenly you're in literally half across the world in a different country. And I was barely 16. So you're really like a baby still. But you have to open up. You have to make friends. Otherwise, it's going to be the most boring semester abroad that you can imagine. And for me, like moving to New Zealand has been completely shaping my life. Like not just the beauty of the country, the kindness as well, and also like first time abroad. And when I lived in New Zealand, there was a lot of Somali students from Somalia and Portland, and they told me a lot about the war that has been going on. By that time, I was already many years deep in the books about like wars and development problems in the world and things like that. But that was my first time I had proper, deep, first-hand accounts from the refugees. I volunteered with Amnesty International at the time. And yeah, it gave me deeper insights and encouraged me as well to go deeper. And I remember my school papers at the time, I drove my profs nuts, both in Germany as well as in New Zealand, because every paper was about the most depressing stuff about, people suffering in the world, basically.
It's definitely clear that you don't stand on stage for personal glory. You really stand there to get your message across. How did you actually manage to get invited to the speaking engagement?
Hey, it's been a long journey. And as I said, like growing up, I was more shy and also definitely not a public speaker. So I remember even in university when I was confident already and I knew what I wanted to do. But even speaking in front of 12 people in my class was torture for me. I would walk around all night practicing. And at some point, I was working for an NGO in Switzerland for many years, the Salvation Army. I was a lovely employer. And they put me on a lot of stages from the get-go because we had a really cool topic. It was anti-corruption, good governance. And this way I got more exposure. And also I have always been a big networker just because at some point I learned to really enjoy speaking to people. And I like to go deeper with them and see where they're coming from, what their mission is, and how we can collaborate. Some of these connections, they've been going on for like decades by now. So that makes you very authentic in what you do. People see it's not just something you put on a LinkedIn post, but you've lived this since, more than half of my life now. And one connection leads to the other, right? So people see your passion. They want to see somebody speak on stage who didn't just take the speech from a ChatGPT text, basically. but who has some interesting stuff from personal experience to tell. For example, recently it was a Wednesday and they asked me, do you want to be in Bulgaria to meet Hillary Clinton on Saturday? And I spontaneously flew in. And then on Friday, I actually met somebody who gave me the connection so that next year I could meet one of our most famous global leaders next year. So one thing always leads to the next. And it's really amazing to see. Yeah.
And saying that yes also helps.
Yeah.
I not said yes, then you would not have met the next person.
I learned to be very spontaneous. I remember once I got invited to meet the Pope in Rome. And again, it was a story like this. And I was like, okay, it might happen, it might not. Long story short, it did not happen, but I had a great time in Rome with a friend. So some stories play out, some don't. I will meet the Pope probably in the future at some point. But yeah, that was funny as well.
Since TED became so popular, it really changed the way that we give speeches on stage. Through its popularity, it became apparent how important storytelling is. You also tell different stories when you gave your TEDx talks. So how did you master the art of storytelling?
I think for me, I love a good speech. I've always loved seeing a good speaker on stage. And I usually got inspired a lot by books, but also by fantastic speakers, like in university, for example, or when I was interning in New York, advising United Nations. There were some great speakers. So I usually take the stories from them. People get bored very easily nowadays. They have hardly any attention span. So I like to learn from these great speakers, and they use a lot of humor, a lot of like fun facts from their own life, and a lot of great stories as well. And also, talking and storytelling is part of most of the cultures of this world. Less so nowadays in our Western culture, but I remember the last time I went to see my projects in Uganda, and almost every second person was a fantastic keynote speaker, just because a small part of the culture. Information is told in community meetings, and people are used to entertain each other and have it way more interactive. So definitely learning from that. Also, I remember a workshop I was teaching in Bangladesh, and there people love acting. So they always have these little role plays, and this is another way of telling stories. So yeah, I love engaging that.
And you are also involved in multiple initiatives to empower women, which I believe is also a reason why you said yes to little me just starting on my fourth episode of podcasting.
Congrats on launching it.
Well, just do it. I'm going for progress, not perfection.
That's the important stuff, getting started. My podcast is also just 1 year old now. We're on a second season, and now it's sponsored as well. So you don't know where life takes you with this when it's just a passion project in the beginning.
So in my talk with Katrina Dow, who's an entrepreneur in digital safety or digital safety by design, she also taught me that we as women need to ask more. And which is also a topic in your latest TED Talk, and particularly for your NGO and the Yes Circle that you're launching. To get that project off the ground, you also need to ask for money. That is usually not an easy question, and I guess it is also not something that you like to do, but I'm sure that you are doing it. How do you manage to do that?
I think for Yes Circle, it was a bit the other way around, because I started my projects in Uganda and I funded them myself. So for about 4 years, I funded it with my private money. And during the time, the projects got a lot of international attention. So we've even made it to the United Nations, speaking alongside Professor Mohammed Yunus, the Nobel Peace Prize winner. At some point, I realized, okay, I have to make this into an official foundation so people can actually donate, because there's a lot of people that want to support this mission. And also, I was very strategic about the NGO. The focus is on technology and innovation for sustainable development goals. People that are interested in this as well.
The message I try to convey is that you need to be clear in what you need. So what kind of empowerment do you need?
Hey, at the moment, I think it's quite diverse. For the consulting company, I'm always looking for people that are authentically interested in having an impact. People want to go deeper. So not just, oh, we want to like greenwash something for our company, but hey, we're actually passionate about this. We have, for example, factories somewhere in Southeast Asia. Let's really make sure these people have fantastic work conditions. We work with the communities as well, have an impact over there. They're definitely like finding cool clients like that. I really enjoy working with them. For the NGO, always looking for great partners to support. Of course, we always need funding. And for the podcast and outreach, like I just enjoy having great guests. So anybody that stands out, that adds something new, that can really inspire people. Love hearing about that. LinkedIn, that's where I'm most active. Instagram as well. And otherwise, if you see me at an event, come up to me.
Super. Is there still anything you would like to say to the listeners and our viewers?
Find out what you're passionate about that you also can have an impact with. It doesn't matter if you care about street dogs, if you want to go into alleviating poverty in the world, but really find something you're passionate about, even if that's not your main job, but get engaged on a voluntary level on the side. If everybody in this world does something, then we can really make a change. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having been here, making time in your busy schedule.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
What an inspiration Luise is. Whether you're part of a large company struggling with reaching their SDG goals, or part of a smaller business who want to increase their sustainability, then go to yes-impact.com. Your support matters. What also matters is your voice. What is the one message that you want to bring onto stage and into the world? It has taken me more than 15 years of entrepreneurship and freelancing to find my calling. And I can tell you that when your purpose is clear, that all the marketing and content creations become so much easier. And people will help you. I just reached out to Luise saying, hey, I admire what you do and I want to amplify women's voices and companies online and particularly on LinkedIn. May I invite you for a podcast? And within a week, she replied, we set a date, and we actually recorded this interview. That's how easy and fast it can be. If you're still unsure about your why, then go to my website, kirande.com, and request access to my free library, where you will find a video about how to find your why. In this video, I've designed and explained 3 different methods that make it so much easier to answer this big and vague question. So try it out and let me know how it was for you, or maybe need some extra help. You can DM me on LinkedIn. My name is Kirande Nijenhuis. I would love to hear from you. And if you're still watching or listening, please subscribe to this video podcast. I'm just starting out and your support and feedback is highly appreciated. I wish you a lovely rest of the day.